Thank you for inviting me to Palestine Kongress in Berlin today. Your event is timely, not only because of the running genocide in Gaza, but particularly because of German government's past and present policies. Nobody, absolutely nobody, can ignore what's going on in Gaza today. There is nothing like it in human history. Of course, there have been in history many massacres and atrocities. We have seen their records carved on ancient walls and in old history books. We have read accounts of Nero burning Rome, Hilako Khan burning Tigris, and we have seen many times films and museums about Nazi atrocities in World War II. We have heard about the Rwandan massacres in Africa. But we have never seen before all these atrocities combined on TV daily on our screens, and this savagery enacted before our own eyes daily. We have never seen before these daily scenes, one massacre after another, homes demolished over the heads of the occupants, bodies pulled from under the rubble, surviving child with all his family killed. We have never seen before people deliberately denied food and water, children starved to death and killed when rushing to get food. We have never seen before all means of life systematically destroyed, hospitals, clinics, schools, universities, libraries, ancient monuments, mosques, churches, universities, cemeteries, bakeries, apartment buildings, shops, water resources, and like all features of life have been destroyed. We have never seen before the criminals with their blood-stained hands claiming to be the victim. We have never seen before waves of humanity, people of goodwill in the streets of the world, from Chile to New Zealand, in London, in New York, Paris, and even in Berlin, calling for this carnage to stop with no avail. We have never seen before that in spite of all this open knowledge, in the days of touted freedom of expression, the voice of the victim is silenced, denied, condemned, and vilified. And yet, we see some Western countries openly helping the criminals, aiding and abetting them, supplying them with bombs to kill, and refusing many times to stop the carnage at the United Nations. The Western single mission is to free 150 Israeli hostages held in Gaza. Did anybody tell you about the other hostages, much larger in number, much longer in captivity? They are the Palestinians held hostage for 76 years. In 1944, in 1948, they were driven by Israel through dozens of massacres from their homes in 247 towns and villages in southern Palestine. They are 2.3 million refugees crammed in concentration camps called Gaza Strip. Its area, 365 square kilometers, or 1.3% of Palestine. They were not only ferociously attacked daily in the last 120 days, as you see, but they were constantly attacked and killed since 1948 for 27,000 days, particularly in 1953, in 1956, 1967, in 1871, in 1887, and then they were besieged and blockaded by Israel since 2006 from land, air, and sea. Their supplies and movements were severely limited. On October 2023, dozens of young men burst through the barbed wire towards their homes. Israel responded with a war of death and destruction. They call it self-defense. Self-defense? Let truth be told. Who was the home defender and who was the foreign invader? The map of Palestine in its invasion explained this. You can see that the Zionist invasion of Palestine started in April 1948 by a Zionist European army of 120,000 soldiers formed in 9 brigades, which carried out 38 military operations to conquer Palestine. They attacked and occupied all the red areas you see in the map. They depopulated villages in blue, 220 of them. In 6 weeks, the Zionist army attacked and depopulated these 220 villages and 11 cities out of eventual 530 villages and towns, and it carried out 22 massacres in this period out of 50, and the one took place during Al-Nakba. Massacres were used as a weapon of ethnic cleansing. Today they are called genocide. In 1948, the Zionist attack took place under the watchful eye of the British Mandate. Before a state called Israel was declared, absolutely there was no such thing as Israel at this time, and before any Arab regular soldier entered Palestine. The news of the massacres inflamed the Arab world. They came to help, but it was too late, too little. Eventually, the Zionist control of Palestine increased from 6% under the British to 78% after the invasion by Zionists of Palestine. And now, of course, Israel occupied all of Palestine. Not 1 acre of this land was obtained by any legal means under any line in international law. This is a Nakba. In this map, you see where we lived, and second, the invasion of Israel took place. Palestine became empty, and the populated people became refugees. Today, there are 9 million Palestinian refugees. Their homes are occupied by Israelis. Not a single Israeli occupant of their homes has a legal title deed of the property he sits on. 94% of land in Israel is Palestinian property. For 76 years, the Palestinians never stopped claiming their right to return home. The UN resolution number 194, affirming the right of return, has been affirmed by the United Nations more than 130 times, the largest and the longest in UN history. And that's why it became part of conventional international law. The right of return is enshrined in the international law. Shall I tell you more of these conventions? 4th Geneva Convention, Article 4. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 8 and 13. The Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, Article 7 and 8. The International Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, Article 5 and 8. And many, many others. This short history begs the question, why are the Palestinians still not allowed to return home, because the original perpetrator of the crime and his cohorts are still doing it. They're still doing it today. These are the countries which recently vetoed against the ceasefire resolution. They are supplying Israel with bombs to kill. And the original crime, therefore, is still going on for 27,000 days. But Palestinians are defiant and resolute. They have no intention of giving up their right of return. And they do not want to remain refugees forever. So we have a duty. You have a duty. We have a duty to plan for the return. First, we see who and where the refugees are. This map shows where the refugees are today. We know where they are, we know where they come from, we know their names, we know everything about them. Next, we see who occupies their land in Israel today. We made a detailed study, village by village, city by city. We wanted to find how many Jews live in Palestinian lands and where. We found a startling result. We found that 246 Palestinian village lands have no Jews today. And we found that 272 village lands have very few Jews, less than 5,000. And we show this in this slide. These village lands which have no Jews, practically no Jews, are shown in green. Beersheba, for example, district is practically empty except for repopulated Palestinian cities. Jewish land forming where the Jews are today during the mandate are shown in blue. Cities where mixed or not mixed are shown in brown. Unlike villages, Israel's destruction of cities was limited to old quarters. And therefore, the Palestinian village lands are practically empty, shown here in red points. So that if we repopulate Palestinian villages again by the return of the refugees to their homes, we do not find any appreciable problem of Jewish displacement. In particular, in Galilee, Little Triangle and Beersheba, there is already a sizable Palestinian population ready to welcome their kith and kin. Then we ask, then where are the Jews today? Where are they located? Generally, Jews live in 924 listed localities with a total population of 5.5 million in the year 2020. That is within the armistice line of 1949. But that may be misleading because only 14 of these localities have a population of over 100,000. 12 have a population between 50 and 100,000. And 29 localities between 20,000 and 50,000. And that means 87% of Jews live in 55 localities, or 5% of all localities listed on Israeli maps. Only 5%. And therefore, the area they occupy, that is the area occupied by Jews in Israel today, is 1,400 square kilometers. I repeat again, 87% of Jews in Israel live in 1,400 square kilometers of Israel, which is 6%, and the rest is practically empty. The remaining settlements of Israelis are very small, and they are kibbutz and mushab. They are planted there together with the army for the single purpose of not allowing Palestinians to return to their homes. So the conclusion is obvious. Geographical and demographic conclusion is obvious. The return is feasible, and of course it is absolutely legal, and to the Palestinians it is sacred and it is inevitable. Now, if that is the case, let us plan the route of return. Let us start with the Al-Bas camp in Lebanon, where the refugees are in Lebanon. I give you this as an example. This slide, animated, shows you the route of the refugees in Bas camp to return. It shows the original villages of refugees now residing in this camp, where they come from. It also shows you only need to travel 5 kilometers walking or on a bicycle to reach Palestine. We can repeat this exercise for other refugee camps in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Gaza, and the West Bank. The return in all cases does not take more than 45 minutes to reach home. Now, when the refugees arrive home, they will find only the debris of their destroyed homes. And buried under the debris is the remains of their houses. But these debris are covered by trees planted by the Jewish National Fund. As you know, JNF, Jewish National Fund, participated in the 1948 war, and they actually were active partners in the population transfer and in the village destruction. It's ironic that JNF is now represented in many Western countries as a charity environment. So the crime is converted into a charity. Now we ask, what do we have to do next? Next task, obviously, is to rebuild the houses destroyed by Israel upon the return of the refugees. Let us start with one village called Al-Qastal. Now we have to locate Al-Qastal. In this series of slides, one after the other, we know everything about Al-Qastal in different dates and different scales until the last one, which shows when Al-Qastal village was destroyed. We now shall reconstruct the new Qastal, but on the same location. This task is completed by one young architect. His name is Yazan Nasrallah. He hails from Al-Qastal. He drew plans to rebuild his grandfather's house in Al-Qastal. And for that task, he won the first prize in the design of the new Qastal in our annual competition for the reconstruction of destroyed Palestinian villages. Now, this competition is in 8th year. So far, 270 young Palestinian architects won awards for the reconstruction of these destroyed villages. So far, we have completed the reconstruction plans for 60 destroyed villages. So the future of Palestine is promising. Now we come to a case very well known to you. Gaza, the defiant, the Stalingrad of Palestine, the largest concentration camp on earth, the home of defiant resistance. Its land is soaked with the blood of killed children. This 214 picture tells you about their young people. They are yearning to return home. They wish to break free from the concentration camp and return home. This concentration camp has a density of 8,000 people per square kilometer, and their homes are occupied by settlers at a density of only 7 persons per square kilometer. That's why some of them penetrated the fence on October 7 to return home. Their land is still empty, as you can see in these slides. Today, over 110,000 Palestinians in Gaza are killed or injured. They paid by their blood for their right to return home. And we ask then, who is preventing them from returning home? Who is occupying their land? This slide tells you the settlers' numbers in their land. They are located in 212 settlements or kibbutzim. But their population, all the population of the settlers in the southern district, is only 150,000. That is less than one refugee camp in Gaza. So there you have it, 150,000 settlers in the land of 2 million Palestinians who are now crammed as refugees in Gaza Strip. And it's amazing that this situation, stark violation of human rights, is not known to many people in the West and Europe. What travesty of justice. Now, Israel military want to displace the Palestinians in Gaza once again to new refugee camps away from their homes, of no return, to throw them away in Sinai Desert. This will never happen. But if you believe in humanity, if you believe in justice, you must seek a legal and just solution. And I ask you, should the Palestinians remain refugees in camps, or should they return home? The answer to me is obvious. The settlers in Palestinian land could either rent a place in the Palestinian land and live peacefully, or move to Jewish areas in around Tel Aviv. Well, these are possible and peaceful answers to the question of the displaced Palestinians. We tested this exercise to see if these settlers decided to north near Tel Aviv and evacuate the land of Palestinian refugees in Gaza. Is it feasible? Is it possible? We studied that, and in these slides we show you how it can be done. We grouped the settlers in 9 convoys, and they could travel in buses or in their cars or bicycles. It will take only 45 minutes of these settlers to reach Tel Aviv. But at the same time, when they evacuate the land of the Palestinian refugees, this will allow 2 million Palestinian refugees from 247 villages to return home peacefully. At last, after waiting 76 years, justice will be made at last, as it should. But all this needs the implementation of one cardinal principle. This principle is essential, just non-negotiable and inevitable. That is, the abolishment of Zionism and all its components: war crimes, dispossession, racism, occupation, apartheid, discrimination, and genocide. Let me tell you something I believed in all my life. I have faith, unshakable faith, that the march of justice will reach its destination. I have faith that this child will return home. In spite of all overwhelming power against defenseless Palestinian people, and in spite of unprecedented genocide committed by Israel, daily, plainly, savagely, in cooperation with colonial governments, in view of the silent world, I believe the future is for justice in Palestine. But you, every one of you, has a duty. At your own home, teach your children that Palestine is and will always be their home. In your daily life, speak for Palestine, day and night. Never stop. Don't be intimidated. In your German life, tell your German government to do what is right. Tell them Palestine does not want you to send them nuclear submarines as you give to Israel. Palestine doesn't want you to give them billions of euros for weapons of mass destruction research as you give to Israel. Palestine does not want you to vote for them, but only wants you to stop voting against them. Palestine wants you only to be silent and not send Palestine death and destruction through your support. This is the least Germany could do for its historical record. At world stage, spread the truth about Palestine. The truth. Who is afraid of truth? Only the guilty, only the criminal is afraid of truth. Palestine shall be free from the river to the sea. Thank you very much.